were doing.
I didn't know how it worked.
Would anybody come?
We made a phone call to Father George that would change our lives.
Do you realize how much work it is to start a church?
It just seemed like it was right.
I knew it was going to be special if it became a reality.
Lift up your gates, O ye princes,
It's been one of the best experiences probably in our life.
and the King of glory shall enter therein.
It's just like a feeling of peace and calm when I come here. I just feel like I'm in the right place.
It seemed like the natural progression. There were so many of us out here that it was time.
Now, Santa Clarita at the time had about 200,000 people and no Orthodox churches.
There wasn't an Antiochian church anywhere near us.
There were no Greek churches, nothing. And it's the third largest city in LA County.
Couple that with the fact that a lot of our friends who had kids the same age had kind of stopped going. And it was something that we noticed. Like, my kids missed their friends, we missed our friends. And we wanted to be able to minister not only to the people who lived up here, but we also wanted to be able to expand. We wanted to be able to bring Orthodoxy to Santa Clarita.
So we said, well, let's call Father George.
And Father George's response was, I've been waiting for you. I'm coming to your house for dinner tomorrow, and we're going to figure this out.
So on Labor Day, we got together and had a little barbecue, and then at the end, the question was popped, what do you think about starting a church out in Santa Clarita? And I said, well, sounds like a great idea, but you need to talk to the bishop.
And he said, all right, now that you've opened the door, be careful what you wish for, because I'm going to kick it down. And that's exactly what he did.
The bishop said, you can have Vespers 2 Saturdays a month. And the other 2 Saturdays, if you want to get together, have a lesson or something, that's fine. But I want you just to have Vespers twice a month, and we'll see how it goes from there. Alex knew someone at the Methodist church here in town. They found out what we were doing, so we have an extra room. You can use our music room.
And I remember thinking, if this goes well, this is a real thing.
When we set up a card table with some icons and began Vespers.
I remember there being, 25, 30 people there maybe.
And of course, being our community, after the service, we had dinner.
I think we knew at that moment that we had something special. I don't think we could have had any concept of what it was going to be, but we knew we were on the right path.
It was exciting. It was exciting,
very
but
exciting.
also a little, like I said, curious. How does this work? Can we build something here?
Well, now all of a sudden, things started just coming out of nowhere.
My Uncle Norm and Aunt Lily had a strip mall, and he knew that we were looking for a space and offered us a little space at his property. A Taekwondo studio on the corner with beautiful view, windows completely surrounding, and we could visualize that as our first church.
It certainly didn't look like an Orthodox church, but it was exactly what we needed because it galvanized us to do the work to make it look like an Orthodox church.
From the outside, it looked like any other strip center. But the minute you got inside, the first thing you're greeted with was the candle stand right in the entryway, and and an icon right on the wall. So you had this kind of warm feeling, and then you step into the sanctuary itself, and you forget where you're at. There were icons everywhere, and everything was beautiful, and there was glass all around.
We'd waited 2.5 years, and we had gathered, I think, about a good 25, 30 families.
And finally the bishop called Father George and said, okay, I will be there in February, and we'll have your first liturgy, and you will be in mission.
It was so exciting because
it was so exciting. Couldn't believe that our little town and our little group of people.
Yeah, and we're bringing Orthodoxy to an area that really needed it.
Everybody was there. I was looking at a picture the other day where I saw many people that were so instrumental. Archdeacon George Shisham, Steve and Edie Nassif, and Father John Finley was there, and several other priests. but it was a beautiful time, and I remember a very holy liturgy.
It was one of the most glorious experiences, and a blur, you know, pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps and making it happen. It was unbelievable.
It was very daunting starting a mission. Like, how do we even get going? Because there are so many things to think about.
How do we bring in the money, and do we have to withhold funds? I mean, withhold taxes? There's just so many questions.
But having come from St. Nicholas and from St. Michael, we knew what to do because of the people that showed us how to do it. How to be ushers, you knew how to teach Sunday school, you knew how to do everything.
The wonderful people to this day that support St. Simeon from St. Nicholas, it would not have been possible without the community, the larger Orthodox community, and we are deeply grateful for that.
The other advantage we had is we had a great priest. We had Father George, who was, I mean, you know, the best.
Brilliant man, amazing surgeon, but I think his calling was this.
Father George, to me, is and was in the very beginning just a very gentle, guiding spirit. Kind of telling us, okay, I think you should look at this, I think you should read that, and just kind of gently guiding us along the paths.
Many people have said, you don't know how lucky you are to have had Father George as the priest. So I feel very grateful.
And we had a choir director. I'm a little biased, but we had a great choir director, and she knew everything about music, she knew everything about the liturgy, so we didn't have to think twice about that. There was no learning curve. The rest was just how do we run an organization, really.
I remember my conversation with Mark Nassif. He said, where do we start? And I said, we start at the altar, and he never let me forget that. So that was our priority, was the prayer of the church. And we knew that if we were faithful in our prayer, everything would take its place, and it did.
We were in the Taekwondo studio for 2 years. Jeff Abraham called us, and he said, we got a building. And all of a sudden, you know, our capacity more than doubled.
When we moved into our new location, I saw the altar coming in through the doors, down this hallway here, and they planted it where it was going to be. And that would be where we worship for the next 10, 20 years. And I was very emotional seeing that come in. And when we saw that iconostas going up, which you constructed in the desert with Father David Cruzy.
I was just the gopher, basically. I cut and sawed where he told me to, but we eventually, in the middle of the summer, finished this iconostasis. And Jorge Abani did the icons for us. And it's glorious. It's a glorious and holy church.
It's an industrial building in an industrial park. But just like the little strip center, you lose that the minute you walk through the door. You start to get more and more in here, and you realize the sacredness the minute you step through those doors.
I remember thinking, man, this is a lot of space. How are we ever going to fill this space? Cut to, 2025, and we're like bursting at the seams. So excited to move in, and so thrilled to move in, and now excited to looking ahead and saying, we barely fit here anymore. What's next?
Seal of the gift of the Holy Spirit. Seal.
At some point, we realized really the future of our church and the growth is in introducing it to people who didn't know Orthodoxy and would convert. And that was slow. And then all of a sudden, after COVID, they started showing up.
I found myself at a place where I was re-examining and looking for truth. And I had a buddy who told me about specifically Antiochian Orthodox. Sure enough, I look up Antiochian Orthodox Church near me, and it's like, oh, there's one 8 minutes away. I'm like, perfect.
Seal of the gift of the Holy Spirit.
Seal. Oh, it was just beautiful. It was my first Orthodox church that I had actually been in. It's a lot different just seeing everything online, just Orthodoxy in general, versus actually living it and being in the middle of it. And so it was a great experience. I just knew that it felt good to be home.
I do remember the first big group chrismation, all of a sudden looking up and realizing, this is why we're here. This is the reason, we set up shop. Yes, it was to provide a home for the current Orthodox, closer to home, but it was also for this.
Blessed is the kingdom of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Now
We've been incredibly fortunate with our clergy. I give Father George more grief than he ever deserved in 5 lifetimes, and he is the most wonderful human. None of this happens without his diligence and his work and his love and his heavy hand when it needed to happen. We have been blessed with Father Andrew coming in. There's no one better to take the reins and move us into the 10-20-year plan than Father Andrew.
Father Andrew is another gift from God, and Choria Ruth is a wonderful Choria.
They're a good match for our church. We really were fortunate to have that happen the way that it did.
I think we have such a wonderful foundation. I told someone one time, you know who comes to Palm Sunday at St. Simeon? And the answer is the same people that come to St. Simeon 2 weeks before Palm Sunday, 4 weeks before Palm Sunday, 8 weeks before Palm Sunday. This is a community that comes to church. This is a community that lives near their church, and they worship together. It's a beautiful experience to be able to have that kind of continuity and that kind of commitment from so many really beautiful people. That's a tribute to Father George, Julia Janine, and the founding families that established sort of that ethos, that this is what we want to build here. This is the kind of community that we understand the church to be, and that's what we want to build. So what I want to do is be a good steward of that and carry it to the next steps.
What I see in 20 or 30 years is that St. Simeon is sort of a mother church, just like the cathedral was to us.
The intention is to evangelize the world, right? Evangelize all of California. And we'll need a few more churches if we're going to do that.
When you're in the midst of it, you don't really realize, or you can't see God's providence and how much love He has for, us. But when you look back on it, so God's will and God's working is usually only seen in retrospect or realized by us fallen human creatures. But when you look back at it, you see the whole thing as a divine, God makes something out of nothing. It's amazing.